So yeah, so what we like to do, Danny, is we like to talk about people's lives and the experiences that they've had throughout that and the lessons that they've learned to hopefully inspire and motivate other people. Maybe he's going on your favorite word on their journey. So if you broke your life up into 3 different parts, Danny, so the start, the middle, and the current. The start would typically be your upbringing and how you got into property and the field that you're in. The middle part will be the exciting part, the growth and all the big things that you've achieved. And the current is obviously where you are now. So could you give us like a brief sort of overview of each of those parts, Danny, and sort of your lessons learned throughout?
Yeah, on my journey. Yeah, it's a yeah, pre-property. Nothing really exciting, to be honest. I kind of fell into property a little bit, but very working class background. Mum was a secretary, dad worked in a warehouse. No real business experience in the family, no entrepreneurialism. The history of doing very simple working class, honest jobs in our family. So I've kind of broke the mold a little bit on an entrepreneurial level. Completely accidentally, although I think there were signs as a kid of me doing dodgy deals, selling, well, like anyone, selling sweets in school and cigarettes in school, and then moving on to Von Dutch hats and Burberry bikinis at college, and just various things like that I always liked to make a little bit of money growing up as a kid, but didn't really realize it was going to end up as a business. My original background is rugby league. I signed professionally as a rugby league player at 15 on very good terms for a 15-year-old. I always called it God's curse, made me very good at something I didn't particularly enjoy that much. And I could see a lot of the guys retiring at 35, which is my age now, funnily enough. And they were going on then to train to be plumbers, or they were going back into normal careers. I'm really struggling, having spent 10, 15 years getting their bodies battered and then heading back into jobs, and they've not really set themselves up for the rest of their lives. And I just thought I didn't want to get my body battered in something I don't really enjoy that much to then have to start a new career at the age I am now. So went into the formal education route, did pretty well at school, quite academic, quite fortunate that I didn't really have to work that hard at school to do okay academically. So I ended up going to the University of Manchester. Mum was very proud of me. First one of us really to go through university and get through university. And I had a graduate scholarship with Lang O'Rourke, a big engineering company, and then realized I didn't want to do engineering either. So I realized that very, very quickly, post-graduating. Didn't finish my master's as a result, because I realized that I didn't want to do that either. So I'd started 2 things on a career level that I'd exceeded expectations at and done very well, but hated both. So kind of at that point in time, kind of fell into a bit of a sticky situation mentally, that I just thought, God, I've found 2 things I'm great at, but I've not done very well. I've done very well, but I've decided I don't like either. Am I ever going to find anything that I enjoy? Which, in hindsight, looking back at 21, 22-year-old me worrying about if I'm ever going to find anything I enjoy, was probably ridiculous, but you don't think that at the time. So yeah, that was pre-property. Simple upbringing, into rugby, which is a very northern thing to do. Did well at rugby, decided I didn't want to do that. Then into education. So I disappointed my dad by walking away from rugby. Then I disappointed my mum by not using my degree to its full potential. So 22 years old, I disappointed everyone.
On that, Danny, do you think anything that you learned from rugby, maybe it's a discipline or anything like that, or the graduate position, do you think you've carried anything from that into the businesses that you're involved in now, or do you think any of those sort of benefited you in any way?
Yeah, I think some of it benefited me and some of it worked against me. I think the one big thing that worked against me was I breezed through life as a young person. I was very, very capable, very fortunate in some respects to be so capable. And when I hit a challenge, i.e. something I didn't really like, I wasn't used to not both being great at it, enjoying it, and getting a load of recognition. So it probably caused me a bit of trouble having things coming that easy as a young person, just purely on an ability level. But it worked for me, and it's certainly in the degree area, and to a degree in property, because in rugby, because I managed to work hard at something I didn't particularly like. So then once I went into an area that I did like, it was much easier. Yeah, much easier to work hard effectively. And it no longer felt like hard work because it was something I enjoyed. So I think working hard in an area you don't necessarily love makes it easier when you find that thing that you particularly enjoy or particularly strikes with you to work hard or put the extra effort in. Like, everyone always comments on how busy we are, how hard I'm working, but it don't really feel that way. I know I'm busy, but I enjoy it. So there's a different kind of feeling to it, I think. I say this to a lot about education, formal education. I think formal education is very broken because it teaches people how to pass tests. It doesn't really prepare them for life. But I would never say that I wouldn't go to university. I would do the same thing again because socially was fantastic. Obviously, you got to see a lot of different things at university you wouldn't see otherwise.
Did they come back a bit? Did they?
yeah. And then secondly, just because it did teach you to have some self-discipline, that, applying yourself in an area, it always pays off ultimately in some way. So I think that was the one big learning there. So that was pre-property, basically. That's largely my journey pre-property.
Great, class. And then how did you? I've heard this story, but I think some people might not know. So how did you then get started into property? Did you stumble into it, courses? How did you get into it?
No, complete accident. So 2009, November 2009, I'll never forget. I'd kind of hit that weird crossroads in life where I'd done two things, given them both up, and I was delivering Chinese takeaways, to be honest. And my amateur rugby chairman sent me along with his son to just a property training. I think it was effectively a +1. I was the +1 ticket to a 2-person property training that his son was already going to, and he had done a couple of years previously. So yeah, that was it. I basically got an introduction. Do you want to go to this? They could probably see I was at a loose end and kind of looking for something. It just struck with me very simply that I'll never forget that weekend, because I like numbers and I like people, and that's a good 90% of property is numbers and people. So I could see logic. I could see the way the market worked. Everything that they were saying kind of resonated with me at that point in time. And I knew nothing. Honestly, my property knowledge was, Mum had a mortgage, she paid it. Like, that was the extent of my knowledge in property. Knew nothing.
Never read any books. It was just literally, that was the catalyst that. And would you say you were hooked from that point? That was you?
Yeah. I think mentally at that point in my life, I needed something to hook onto, and I was fortunate that it was that I hooked onto. I became very addicted in a positive way to property and the market. And again, another fortunate was timing. It was 2009. We just come out of the crash. The readily available stock, and it was just a good timing. It just felt like stars aligned effectively. I'm not a massively spiritual person in any way, but if you could have picked a time when I needed something like property, it was definitely at that point in my life. So it was just great on that perspective, and haven't looked back since. I've not, I've been pretty consistently in property since, and kind of had full faith and convinced myself I was going to make it happen, which a lot of people would have thought was ridiculous. And to be fair, a lot of my friends voiced how ridiculous I was being, delivering Chinese takeaways 6 nights a week and telling everyone I was a property investor for the 7 days a week. So yeah, in hindsight, it's worked out all right.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It's definitely worked out all right. So were you, just to clarify, so you were, apart from doing the takeaways, have you been full-time now since 2009?
Yeah, the only other job I've had is takeaway delivery service. Yeah, or I'm
Okay.
sure there's a posher name you can come up for takeaways.
Yeah.
Hot food distribution operator or something like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
could have been
that was
CEO as well. Normally, everyone's a CEO on LinkedIn, aren't
yeah,
they?
CEO of takeaway delivery. Yeah, that was my.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but
fair. And I think you've said on a few of your posts, like everyone sees the success now, but they probably don't know, or they certainly don't think about where that it was
yeah,
sourcing it by itself, wasn't it? At the start, you didn't buy for 18 months, is when I did my digging, doing takeaways on the side. But now they see these huge multi-million pound developments. It didn't go from the course to that, did it? It didn't. You didn't get your financial freedom in 7 days. I don't think that's.
Oh God. Yeah, I don't. I mean, everyone that follows me on any social media will know I take great enjoyment in poking that part of our industry, the get rich quick mentality. I think the big thing for me is I delivered takeaways for 18 months and I sourced for 18 months. I didn't buy a property, as you've mentioned, for 18 months, and it would have been very easy for me to go and get a job at that point in time that didn't allow me the time of day to go and do property in the day, but paid me more money, had a better view from other people on the job that I was doing, or like, wouldn't have got me laughed at as much as it did then. I can vividly remember I'm a rugby league playing guy from Warrington, and here, it's eat or be eaten. You get a load of shit for everything. So as somebody who's delivering Chinese takeaways, as someone who was a good rugby player, did well in his degree, and then ends up delivering Chinese takeaways, my rugby playing mates took great joy in absolutely ripping the urine out of me. So yeah, brutal, absolutely brutal. But it's I look back on that time and I did what I needed to do in that point of time, and a lot of people just aren't willing to make what is a relatively short-term sacrifice for the benefit of the long term, because they want or feel like they need it to be so quick. And it's not quick. Property, we say it all the time, 3 to 5 years minimum, you're going to have to put in some work to get in a reasonable position where for most people it could replace their job. I was very fortunate. I had no expenses at the start, and the job I was replacing was a Chinese takeaway delivery service that wasn't incredibly well paid. And even then, after that transition, I lived in a 2-bed house. I had my office in the front living room and I rented out the second bedroom, and that covered costs. And then it's so progressive, but you don't go from a 21-year-old delivering Chinese takeaways to I'm 35 years old now, and everyone now looks at the nice cars, nice house, holiday homes, all of that. But anyone can have it. Just do what I've done. I say this to everybody: do what I've done, you can have what I have. It's as simple as that. But for most, it's not as simple as that. So it's
or they're not prepared to make the sacrifices that I think in this country now, unfortunately, and elsewhere. I don't know if you shared this. Someone shared this about people have a sense of entitlement now, don't they? Massively. But we could do a whole podcast on that. So let's pull it back a little bit.